trying to romance the Hispanic vote with no or little regard for the health, safety, and welfare of the American public. And that's what's going on here.
We're here in a place that is clearly marked with signs warning of the imminent danger because of our proximity to here, about what is happening here. And what is happening is right now we're in the reaches of the Sinaloa cartel with El Chapo in charge. And off to his side, you have remnants of the Gulf Federation, the Zeta cartel further south as you head into Texas. Every one of these groups have now seized control of the Mexican side of the border and are now moving their whole operations into the interior of the United States, going right across the ranches here. And each one of these ranchers have told us over and over that they're coming right over them and they're heading straight to us. They're setting up their same operations from one city to the next city across the United States.
There is no security on the border. The federal government has completely failed in that manner. And the security that possibly you would get from the sheriff's department is being hindered at from the federal government. We're not safe. We're definitely not protected by the federal government. So, you know, I don't let it bother me. We don't let it bother us, but it's not because we have any faith in Washington doing its job.
The amount of drugs coming across the border could not happen in the United States without the incompetence of the American government. So you have the collusion of the Mexican government facilitating the drug trade and the incompetence of the American enforcement efforts on this side of the border, which encourage drug trafficking.
Federal and local law enforcement have told me multiple times that there are cartel spotters driving up and down that highway all the time.
That sign doesn't say maybe you're in danger here. I mean, you can't get anything more specific than that. So don't travel alone. Watch your surroundings, and smuggling and or illegal entry is common in this area too. And I've been trying to explain to people forever that the violence and the devastation and the damage to our society doesn't begin and end at the border. It starts way south and goes to every community within this country. You know, everybody in this country, the first thing you have to do is, like that sign indicates, you got to look out for yourself. Be aware of your surroundings. Be prepared to deal with what comes at you, and know that it can come at any time. And then, I mean, we respond. Sometimes our response times, because we have 6,300 square miles and 86 deputies, you know, to respond. It can be a long time. And
You said how many deputies?
86.
What if you, as the sheriff here,
Had 1,300 Border Patrol agents.
if you had 1,300 Border Patrol agents, could you effectively control this border?
We'd shut this puppy down. What inhabits this country? This is not a place that you pass by. If you drive by, and it's not, there are other roads, you know, that peel off and go different places down there. It's like, you have to know the country. And the only people that know the country are the ranchers and the smugglers. That's who, and jackrabbits and cattle, and there's a few antelope out here, and rattlesnakes.
That start forest fires.
Yeah, they do. They rub their little tails together in mating season. You know, get friction.
According to the news outlets.
Yeah, and there's alligators in a moat over here too, by the way.
No, I told you the alligator story, my friend Jeff. You're gonna have fun with Jeff. Everybody knows crocodiles are more aggressive than alligators. We need crocodiles in the moat.
Not alligators.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Nah, we need seals. Capital S, capital E, capital A.
Oh.
You know,
Yeah.
as in Navy."
And within one day, they were already back up
Yeah, they
running.
already had
again.
the scouts
They had
back
already
up.
had everything ready to go back up again running because we had already started getting.
See
group
now,
again.
how in the world are they that well funded?
Do you know how much money they make from this drug
the
sale?
cartels.
Yeah.
The money's
my
not an
gosh.
issue.
Are you recording it?
Yeah.
I mean don't pretend you're talking to somebody completely stupid. Okay. How in the world are they able to finance completing those kind of operations? In your opinion?
Well, the
In my
money,
opinion, we supply them with the cash. They send their drugs up, we send our cash back. And that's how they fund all this.
And the drug prices haven't gone up. So if they haven't gone up,
No, they're just
then we haven't done any dent onto the drug trade.
they're way more funded. They have more money than we do
by far.
by far.
By more money than we'll ever have.
Yeah, to fight this.
Now, do you not think it's kind of scary that they could have an apparatus that stretches through a major part of American cities that's pulling people their direction?
What do you mean by apparatus?
Well, see, the only way that the fear that I have is that, okay, I'm in North Carolina. Okay, to see as many as we're seeing, they can't just be getting in a vehicle and driving to North Carolina. Somebody's got to be coordinating it
Oh yeah.
to that large scale.
They run it like a big business.
And
It's
if-
extremely well organized with guys at different power levels without the organization that control transportation.
What we're finding is just how much money is being money laundered in and out of the United States every day, which is going into the banks such as Arab banks. It's going into banks such as HSBC that we've seen in recent news, Wachovia, which was bought out by Wells Fargo. All are going to end up being slammed with different penalties, but nobody actually going to prison over what has happened.
Dentist office.
Dentist office.
Travel agencies,
Travel agencies.
Check cashing services.
check cashing services at midnight.
At midnight.
You never know when you have the urge to cash that check, you know. You might wake up in the middle of the night and say, damn, I've got to
I
check.
gotta go
Yeah.
get my check.
And that happens millions of times a night here in the Big Apple.
It must, because otherwise they wouldn't be open at this hour. And so it goes.
Jeez.
And this is just one neighborhood. You go, phone cards, another way of communicating discreetly. I mean, look at all the travel agencies. This is supply and demand. If they didn't have the customers, they wouldn't be in business.
Correct.
There's cash and loan. I mean, just wherever you go, this is what you're saying. And it repeats and it repeats and it repeats.
So the money laundering that's taking place here is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
24/7. And sometimes you see these guys with backpacks, and you would just love to have X-ray vision because you have to wonder what's in the backpack.
Majority of produce that comes into the United States comes through the Dallas Port of Entry on a daily basis, especially in this wintertime. With that, from investigations and working along the border, it's a major source of vulnerability. 60% of all the drugs that came in through Arizona came up that I-19 corridor. Majority of that amount of drugs came through the commercial port of entry, on trucks mixed with produce. 60% of all the drugs coming into Arizona comes through the I-19 corridor, right up the gut. They come in through Mexico, any water-based produce, because water-based produce can conceal from an X-ray drugs like marijuana, bales of marijuana.
Like tomatoes, grapes,
Watermelons, cucumbers,
cantaloupes.
anything that's a fruit or produce like that, yes, will disguise those drugs. Be hard to detect. and that masking of those drugs or putting cover loads on those drugs come in. They come through the commercial gate. They never go to the manifested location in Nogales on the U.S. side. And at some point, within a couple of days, those drugs get transferred to another trailer, then get shipped to places like Tucson and Phoenix, where it gets transshipped again and ends up in places like Atlanta, like New York City, Detroit. In my opinion, the United States has sacrificed security for trade. You know, the backhand is trade may have to wait an hour or two more, but wouldn't the American public want the assurance that the grapes they're eating, the cucumbers they're eating, wasn't sitting on a load of cocaine or heroin?
So, large ships can carry thousands of containers on tankers and thousands upon thousands. Not everyone is inspected. For the vessel, you have a cargo manifest, which is supposed to tell you what's in them, but as a mariner, you're not physically supposed to go into the container without suspicious cause. So we don't know what's in the container. We don't know if the shippers or the person who's chartering the ship is being truthful about what's in the containers.
Is it not reasonable to say, in keeping with Article 4, Section 4, that the primary mission of our military is to keep our enemies as far from our shores as possible? How on earth can our armed services, our armed forces, the men, the women, young, not so young, with all that equipment and all the money and all their valor and all their dedication and commitment and talent, how can they accomplish that very important and fundamental goal when our borders only exist on maps and we already have unknown millions, I would argue tens of millions, of foreign nationals, aliens, living in virtually every town and city scattered across this country? We have no record of their entry. We have no way of knowing not only their name, but even their nationality. We therefore know nothing about their background, their affiliations, or their ultimate intentions.
Book author of One of by Land, an Arizona resident, Bill Daniels, explained that the culture of Mexico is one of utter corruption. The size and scope of the amount of drugs coming through, the organization to do this effectively has just boggled my mind that this is not a single guy thinking I can make money off drugs. That the only way that I can conceive that the Sinaloa cartel, which makes sense that they're working directly with the government, that the Mexican army itself has to help stage, warehouse, and guard and transport drugs to the United States.
The drug business in Mexico is highly organized, highly efficient, and it could not succeed without the participation of large numbers of people in the Mexican government and the Mexican military, including generals, politicians, and it follows a tradition that goes on in Mexico for years and years, that the government has been deeply involved in the infrastructure of the drug trade.
Under President Fox, the PAN party used La Mordida to allow 5 drug cartels to control specific corridors into America. Like a franchise, the bite was roughly $5 million each month to the government for corridors such as the Nogales, Arizona corridor. The bite corrupted everyone down to police officers who are largely untrained, paid cheap, and easily bribed. In 2006, when President Calderon of the PRI party took office, the cartels had so much money they could effectively buy off anyone to the point the Mexican army and the government was out of balance. Cartels seized the border, and in many cases, the Mexican army gave the necessary logistics to cartel drug operations into the United States.
Well, we're still seeing that, bodies left, decapitations, burning, leaving them in obvious places as messages to folks. We're seeing that in the central part of Mexico still. What is being reported, though, from a number of different sources, both media and from my contacts in law enforcement, is that people are just disappearing now. So no longer do you have these great numbers of people hanging from bridges and all this graphic imagery of these mutilating bodies. But what you have now is people just disappearing, and which is in as big or greater numbers than we've seen with the more graphic violence.
So what do? They bring people in with the drugs,
Right.
because they know that they can yank that guy real quick. You mess with me, your brother disappears, your wife disappears, your children disappears. Unlike the Italian mob, which will almost never touch family, they first do the family. And they do it as brutally as possible. Think of all those corpses without the heads and the graffiti sprayed on the body. 50,000 people killed since Felipe Calderon took office. They're here. When we blithely hear from the Homeland Security, well, a couple of hundred cities have the Mexican cartels. But what does that mean? It means these same players that are doing the murders in Mexico are coming here. And why do they come here? Because everyone knows you mess with them, you die, your family dies, you go to the police, you're gonna die. This is what's going on in America today.
In my opinion, Mexico is rapidly approaching another civil war. I've heard U.S. law enforcement officers saying is that after this administration, the Nieto administration comes in, the only control that the government will have will be around Mexico City. And from that, the cartels will then unleash their violence on each other. Because the Sinaloan cartel under Calderon has really solidified, from West Texas to California, solidified control of the border in those areas. And that'll be in contention again. And those are the areas to watch to where the violence will start creeping up. And we've already seen violence in the Puerto Penasco area of Mexico. So we'll watch, we'll see, but those areas will be in contention again. When we see violence in those areas, those are going to be very bad signs of what's going to come. That the drug trafficking organizations control the flow of illegal immigrant trafficking or the human trafficking aspect. And my information is that this year is as bad or worse than last year, the number of deaths that are occurring out in the border.
This just happened spontaneously. It's, New York still suffers post-traumatic stress. We can't ever forget that day. The ashes rained down on this neighborhood. My drugstore guy told me that I guess it's half or 1 in 3 of all of his customers lost a family member. Think about that. 1 in 3. The guy that ran the pizza parlor here, partner in the pizzeria, was also a fireman who died on 9/11. So when you saw that kind of destruction in this neighborhood, it was mind-boggling. It was mind-boggling. To have been in New York on that awful day, and then you see what we're not doing to protect us after that. And you have to say to yourself, what on earth are our religious leaders thinking about? I don't care if they're with a hopping kangaroo party. The first responsibility any government has to its citizens is to provide for their safety and well-being. How do you do that with borders that exist only on paper and with millions of illegal aliens in our country whose true identities, affiliations, and intentions are unknown and unknowable? Don't we ever learn lessons? My dad said to me that to make a mistake was forgivable. It's a lesson if you learn from what goes wrong, but it's unforgivable to repeat the same mistake repeatedly. And here we are. What are we doing to make sure this doesn't happen here?
Reports have been surfacing since the war on terror began that Islamic terror cells are building a worldwide network. First across the Middle East, then into Africa, where American hostages are currently being held in Nigeria. Don't forget about the Benghazi September 11th, 2012 terror attack, where the U.S. ambassador and 3 other U.S. citizens were murdered on sovereign U.S. territory. However, it shouldn't surprise anyone that since 2001, these same groups are crossing into the United States. In January 2011, a Muslim prayer book honoring jihadist martyrs was found in southern Arizona. Hezbollah is actively training Mexican cartels to use IEDs and tunnel digging technology. Iranian Quds forces have established training camps in Bolivia and Venezuela. Other cells have been placed in Brazil, Ecuador, Guatemala, Nicaragua. The warnings is that they may be preparing for operations across the United States should Iran be attacked. Congresswoman Sue Myrick asked DHS to investigate the matter as far back as September 2010. We know they're in the U.S. How many? And where is the question. We went to the Colby Ranch in southern Arizona to view a recovered Muslim diary and hear the chilling account.
And I picked up this backpack, and it was wet, whatnot. And anyway, I brought it up and put it in the garbage out back. She came in and she said, "Did you throw away this backpack that's in the garbage?" I said, "Yeah, I threw it away." And she said, "Where'd you find it?" And I said, "Down by the fence, about 100 yards from our house." And she said, "Did you look in it?" She said she found this book, and it was about 6 inches wide, and like an autograph book. And inside was written in Arabic, Spanish, and English. There was a phone number for Iran and a phone number for Canada inside of it. And you could see there's some in English, there's some in Spanish.
Well, that's definitely Arabic.
So this guy was not just looking for a job at McDonald's, I can tell you that. They shut down Palo Verde nuclear plant up by Phoenix, and they put a cordon of National Guard all around the property, a mile wide.
And that was about a week after that.
This was exactly a week after. But at any rate, they shut down Palo Verde nuclear plant a week afterwards, and this appeared. This was on the front page of the Arizona Republic, and it says here, down at the last couple of paragraphs, it said, "Clues that Arab people, their intentions unknown, were entering illegally from south of the border included a diary found last week in southern Arizona that was written in Arabic. Said Thursday that after translating the diary, the agency decided to launch an investigation into its source. She would not reveal what it contained. At Sky Harbor, security officials began random checks of cars and were preparing to check cars entering garages at Terminal 3 and 4 beginning today." Now the interesting thing was that the backpack was caught on the bottom of the barbed wire fence. We had a dog at that time, it's a Bandit, that she'd chase him off. And we think that he probably turned around and went back south through the fence in a hell of a hurry and got the backpack snagged on the fence.
What's the problem with this fence?
Oh.
Look at the fence.
Becky wants you to talk about what's the problem with this.
What's the big deal with this fence? Why is this a problem?
Okay.
Tell us exactly what's happened here, because we don't get it. Why is there a big hole underneath this $40 million fence?
Right. When they put the original border wall in, it was solid square tubing, and it's a 4-inch gap between them. They're staggered pipe, they're posts, whatever. And so trash, debris, water bottles, whatever you want to talk about gets plugged up in them, and so then it backs up. And there's some environmental issues according to Corps of Engineers.
Okay, hang on just a second. We're concerned about the environmental issues on the Mexican side of the fence.
Yeah. It's impeding flow. That's what the concern is.
But it's on Mexico's side.
But it comes into us. And, so anyway, you couldn't plug up these structures, and so then they came back after the fact and put these removable floodgates in. And so the idea is that they would anticipate a flood Border Patrol would come out and lift the gates up, let the flood water come through, and it'd clean them out, and there'd be no maintenance problem.
How do they lift them up?
Well, on the demonstration, and I was here, but Border Patrol with a 3/4 ton truck and a winch on the bumper would pull up to it, they'd get the cable out, then throw it over that brass pulley up there, throw the hook over that, and then drop it down and hook it into that eye on top of the gate. Then they'd turn the winch on, and it'd lift the gate up, and then they'd remove the pins, lift it up, and then they'd put the pins back in and hold it up. And they open these up in the first part of July, and they just leave them open.
For how long?
Well, last year they were here for probably 3 months.
Okay.
Open for 3 months,
Yeah.
third of the year.
Well, you can drive a truck through here.
Patrol's not here.
No, and that, I don't mind telling you this, but when they first started doing this, I put the barbed wire up to keep the Mexican cows out, and they really got mad at me for doing that.
Wait a minute. So
Let me get this straight.
you, John, you,
The American citizen.
that's your barbed wire that you put up.
But this isn't. The first year, this is the
First.
third year we've had this, but the first year they lifted them up, and I said, well, where are you gonna put the fence up? We're not putting the fence up. That'll impede the flow of water. And I said, well, we need to impede the flow of cows, so we're putting the fence up.
You've got to get that on tape.
So you came out here and told the Border Patrol it may be a good idea to
Yeah.
block all of the illegal cows that are moving in and out of the border, and they agreed but not too happy with impeding illegal cows.
I was going to get in big trouble. I couldn't be messing with government property or anything else. I thought, I don't care. I'm not going to start putting Mexican cows back again. I'm going to put the wire up. Border Patrol agreed to put the wire up. But
Wow. Well, I hate to tell you this, but we have now been here
Almost
Yeah.
2 hours.
almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we still have yet to even see one Border Patrol. How many vehicles do you think could come through there in 2 hours?
as many as you want.
We've had to turn around and fly back to it because a drug operation has just happened. They have actually broke through the Border Patrol fence and they've broke through the rancher's gate. They took off at high speed in a Nissan pickup truck, and we got the call and we're trying to head in there. We think that there could be Border Patrol in that vicinity and possibly one sheriff deputy, but we're meeting the rancher and speeding, trying to get to it. Another day in Cochise County, where the 7-foot clearance took place that we were at earlier. The Mexicans that made this, oh wait a minute, or the OTMs, whoever they were, in a Nissan pickup truck, driving right.
We're walking down. What just happened is the gates that we looked through. It was just this morning that we were here at these gates talking about the possibility of a truck driving through these open gates, and that's exactly what just happened. And yes, right here is where they cut the wire. We can see it.
Look right there. Look, folks, we were just here today. Look.
They cut this wire, and then they wrapped it back. Once they drove through, we can see the tracks.
Yeah.
We can look up here and just see where they drove down the mound. Look at the bank right there.
But look, we got footprints here. Right there. These were not here today, folks. We were just out here today.
We measured this, and we told you this morning that it's big enough to drive a truck through. And right here we can see how they came just right down through here. They cut these, they put it back so that it's not so noticeable, and they went through John's property.
In broad daylight at about.
For farmers and folks in North Carolina, you can tell by looking at that brush that it was recently
Just a couple hours.
driven over. Folks, the drug cartels are coming through.
Yes, they are still outside of here looking for a white Nissan Titan with mud all over the side of it as it sped through at a high rate of speed and went right over the road to Border Patrol. Not only did we just have a drive-through cutting the wires here with the Border Patrol fence and then cutting Rancher Ladd's fence here, but the sheriff's office just informed us they've got intelligence that came in that the people coming through now to expect body armor that they would be wearing, which is unusual. They don't really have that report here of late. So this has just happened. We're here reporting it today with the sheriff's office here. Border Patrol just came by us. And so we'll learn more as we go through the day.
Out here today, but here we are after a truckload of dope came through, went through my property, my fences, got to the highway and got away. And we've seen one Border Patrol that drove past here since then. And that's unusual. I don't get that.
What time is it now? What time of day is it?
It is now 10 till 7.
Well, folks, you can see down that road, nobody in sight coming that way.
Even though there's been a warning just issued and the people coming through now
and
are putting on body armor
in sight.
Law enforcement I really worry about, especially when you see the vest, the weapons, and the technology that they have.
And when you say vest, this would be considered Class 3 body armor that was at this last.
Yes, probably so. Any kind of body armor is basically, you use body armor to keep yourself from getting shot. And, really it's hard to justify anybody other than law enforcement who does that on a daily basis. Why would you be having drugs, large cash, and body armor together unless you're basically committing crimes?
So you're basically seeing here what is being seen in Arizona and elsewhere. You're seeing black tar heroin.
Yes.
Methamphetamines.
Yes.
April the 16th, 2009, in Mexico City. President Barack Obama had a joint news conference with President Calderon and reported an ATF report that 90% of guns used by the cartels were from the United States. This report became disputed and proven false. In actuality, less than 12% of guns seized by the Mexican government came from the United States, and a large number of those came from the consent of the ATF, which is part of Attorney General Eric Holder's Department of Justice, which made the 90% claim. Why would the DOJ support sending thousands more guns and other weapons into the hands of the cartels? Operation Fast and Furious was put into motion. The Border Patrol uses a specialized trained group called BORTAC, which actually is from Janet Napolitano's Department of Homeland Security, Bureau of Customs and Border Protection. They are to protect America from terrorist threat. On December the 14th, 2010, one unit was deployed into Peck Canyon. The four-man team, strangely enough, consisted of agents from different Border Patrol stations. The group was to intersect a group of armed bandits. They deployed at 10:30 p.m. during a clear, moonlit night. The group they were to intersect had dropped a ton of dope near Interstate 19. 6 to 8 had AK-47. In Bill Daniels' research, one report came that there were 30 unidentified people heading to the BORTAC unit, but unknown to the agents, especially Brian Terry. At 11:10 p.m., Terry's group had been deployed, facing the wrong direction, with their backs to the main ridge. The cartel came upon the BORTAC unit, turned and fired with a beanbag gun, then small arms. Quickly, Agent Terry was shot in the back. He exclaimed he couldn't feel his legs. By 11:40 p.m., Agent Terry was unresponsive and had no pulse. 5 feet from his body were 3 weapons, 2 AK-47s. Brian Terry's death will not go away. Recently, the arrest of Jesus Vicente Zambada at his hearing in Chicago led many to believe that Brian Terry's death was due in part to collusion between the Obama administration, the Sinaloa cartel, and President Calderon. Was Brian Terry onto the scheme? Just how many dirty agents are employed in U.S. law enforcement? It makes you ponder, considering that 2 more border agents in Cochise County, Arizona, were recently shot and one killed by so-called friendly fire. once again on a clear moonlit night, but this time on horseback, and the news spin is just beginning. The agents involved had radioed that they were both under fire, and Mexico claimed to arrest. Why, if it was just friendly fire? You can bet that this time no weapons will be recovered, especially linked to Fast and Furious. Agent Nicholas Ivey joins a list of 53 Border Patrol agents killed since the 1986 Amnesty Act was passed. La Mordida is in the United States. Like a premonition during Sheriff Larry Deaver 1997 campaign, he stated in quote, "This violence was coming and would be Cochise County's greatest issue," end of quote.
People have to lock their doors and their vehicles because they're looking to travel and bring illegal substances, and like it's all drug use basically now, where before it was a better life, and so now it's not safe.
She was explaining all this, that, and the other, and I understand what you're going through, and I said, hold on here. I said, where do you live? Well, I live in Tucson. I said, are you afraid to go outside and let your little dog out to pee at night because there might be somebody in your yard? I don't think so. I said, you don't understand our problem. You may sympathize, but you don't understand.
Can it be stopped? Can America regain control of its borders? Well, yes, according to Sheriff Deaver. It can be done. We can secure these borders. We need to enforce the laws we already have. Let law enforcement do its job. Put the Border Patrol under partial sheriff supervision with constant evaluations to remove dirty agents. Putting the Border Patrol actually on the border. Just enforce Title 8 of the Immigration Enforcement Code. It's time to stand up.
We owe so much to law enforcement across the United States, and especially to Cochise County, Arizona. The loss of perhaps one of America's greatest sheriffs, Sheriff Larry Deaver, who spent so much time with us to educate us about what's happening. And you know, our thoughts go out to them, and we don't go a week, even a day, without at least pausing to think about what's happening out there.
What is happening to me is going to happen to you. Like I told you earlier, I have not that I'm a nice person. I have done some bad things, but I have no criminal record. I've never been arrested. I've never spent a night in jail. I've never been on welfare. I've never been without a job. I've never been divorced. I've been married to the same woman for 35 years. I've raised 2 sons that go to church. I pay my taxes. And all of a sudden, I'm the enemy. Why?